Hello and welcome to our panel discussion this evening on 2021, the year for successful silage. I'm Emily Collins, Knowledge Exchange Manager for AHDB Dairy, and I'm very grateful to be joined by George Fisher, Independent Consultant, Roger Hildreth and Ben Wade. Thank you very much. I will hand over now to George Fisher. So thank you very much for joining us, George.
Thanks, Emily.
Start us off.
Thank you, I will do. Thanks, Emily, and good evening, everybody. I've just got a few slides here on multi-cut silage, what it is, what the benefits are, and some of the challenges, and some numbers that we can have a look at that are indicative of some of the costs and also some of the improvements that we can make. So multi-cut silage is very simple, really, in its definition. It's going from your 2 or 3 cuts and going for 4, 5 or more cuts of silage, and doing this by starting the first cut early, a couple of weeks at least earlier than you're probably normally doing, and cutting every 5 to 6 weeks. So what we're doing is we are taking lighter crops, but because we're cutting more often, we tend to increase yield per hectare over the silage cutting season. And we're cutting at a leafier, more digestible, higher metabolizable energy, and possibly also higher crude protein content. So we've got a higher quality material. And because it's a lighter crop, we have the opportunity to wilt more quickly, so there's a faster wilting, so we can end up with higher dry matter. So we end up with a material that has basically a higher intake characteristic. Can I have the next slide, please, Emily? Thank you. So in terms of the benefits, why do we want to do this, and some of the challenges as well? So we've said that we get a higher quality of grass silage product. So we can use this to increase milk yield and or lower feed costs. We'll have a look at that in a minute. But because we're producing a higher intake characteristic material, you would take your winter feeding intake figures per cow per day from something like 10, 11, 12 up to, or kilograms dry matter per cow per day, up to something in the region of 14 or 15. So we can use that increase in energy to make more milk or to reduce concentrate inputs and therefore lower feed costs. We mentioned the reducing of wilting times. There is some anecdotal data that says that there's a potential to increase milk solids output. If we're increasing yield, we're doing that per hectare anyway, but there may be an opportunity to increase fat and protein percentages as well, although that doesn't seem to be a consistent effect. And it does have benefits throughout the system, actually. So if we've got young stock, obviously we're producing a higher quality of forage for a young stock as well. Challenges that we've got to consider, obviously it's going to cost more. We are taking more cuts. We've got our own machinery, or more often these days contractors to pay, so there's more costs involved. It does take more management time and planning, and if in terms of multi-cut, if you go away with anything this evening, I would like you to go away with the reality that to do this successfully, we need to plan and plan and plan. And when we think we've planned enough, we probably need to go away and have a drink and come back and do a bit more planning. It may involve more kits, so there might be more costs there. There's an impact on the nutrition system. I've already said, if we've got a higher intake characteristic of base silage quality, then we need to rejig the winter nutrition system and the rations that we're feeding to account for that. There's also the fitting in of slurry, because we've got a shorter growing period between each cut. The slurry applications that we put on need to be lighter, and we need to make sure that we're not putting on so much slurry that it's hanging around for the next time we cut and messing up with our silage quality. So on the flip side, that might actually encourage us to make more use of the nutrients within slurry, but it's something that we have to note. And soil compaction is something that we have to look out for as well if we're going to go multi-cutting. In a 3-cut system, for example, we know from research that about 85% of a field will have been wheeled in a 3-cut silage season. We're talking about doing 4 or 5 or even more cuts. So the potential for soil compaction through wheeling is increased through multi-cutting. So we need to do a lot of planning. We should review the assets before we embark on a multi-cut system. Are the clamps up to it? Are the soils up to it? Do we have the right swards? Are they up to it? Are they in good nick? What's the relationship with our contractor like? Can we get the contractor to do this with us? So we need to review all the assets that are involved, execute the plan, and learn. We don't tend to get there all the way in terms of successful multi-cutting in 1 year. It's something that takes a few years of learning in the process to get it right. What I'm going to show you now, if we can go on to the next slide, please, Emily, is just a series of numbers. These are not from research, these are from real farms, and they are indicative. So they're right for some farms and they're probably wrong for you. But the point is, we're looking at some numbers here that can start our thought processes, and you can obviously work out these numbers for your own farm situation, because the impact of multi-cutting is unique to your farm, and how you use the improved forage quality is up to you, and it depends on the system that you're operating. So we need to work out the costs. We've got for 3, 4, and 5 cut systems there. Establishment costs, slurry spreading costs increasing, obviously because we're putting on lighter and more applications of slurry. The nutrition plan needs to be in place, and the swards need to be in good nick, so we tend to have higher fertilizer and spray costs. Obviously we've got higher harvesting costs because we're harvesting more often, and slightly higher shooting and additive costs, and we put in an imputed rent value there as well. So you can see that going from 3 to 5 cuts per hectare is adding on sort of around about 400, just over 430 odd pounds per hectare. But we must work these costs out at the start, because actually what we want to do with multi-cutting is get a return on investment, and we can't calculate that without knowing what the costs of multi-cutting are. Next slide, please, Emily. Thank you. So if they are the costs, how can we work out what the benefits are? We can see here from the same set of farms, 3, 4, and 5 cut systems, what we tend to see is, as we said originally, is an increase in the dry matter hectare yield per hectare that we get, and a higher energy content. So you look at the energy content there, there's a line that says energy content megajoules ME per kilogram of dry matter. We tend to get when we're multi-cutting on average over the season about a 1 percentage point increase in the megajoules of ME that we get per kilogram of dry matter. And that's what is driving the benefit, really. So if we look at the tons of dry matter per hectare produced, 3 cuts, we got 10 tons, 13 and up to 16 for 5 cut system. We don't actually feed everything. There is wastage, and it's very difficult to minimize that to 0. But in a very good silage making and feeding system, then we would feed, actually get from field to mouth about 75% of what we grow. So if you turn those tons of dry matter per hectare yields into actually what we get into a cow's mouth, you can see the numbers there, 7.5 for 3 cut, rising to 12 for a 5 cut. Multiply those by the energy content, and you can see that we have a very large potential impact on the amount of energy that we can feed from grass silage when we go multi-cutting. So per hectare from a 3 cut system, we have 81,000 megajoules of ME fed per hectare, rising to over 140 there for a 5 cut system. So what does that mean in terms of the system itself and our ability to make a profit? Well, it depends how you put it into your system, but if you divide those numbers by 5.4, which is what I use to calculate how much energy it takes to produce a litre of milk, you can see the litres of milk per hectare potential from the grass produced in those 3 cutting systems, rising from 15,000 litres per hectare for a 3 cut system up to 26 for a 5 cut system. If you want to also use that extra energy to replace concentrate, you can see the concentrate value there of that energy that's produced in the three different numbers of cutting systems, and that's based on a proprietary concentrate of 13 ME. If we go to the next slide, please.
George, just before I move on, is the
Sure.
75% average, or what should people be aiming for? Is there a way to improve it?
No, 75% is pretty good. You will come across some systems where the attention to detail is immaculate, and we can actually feed 80% of what we grow in a grass field, but it's not uncommon to get down to numbers of 50 to 60. So 75 is pretty good. That's with your harvesting and your fermentation and your feeding all being excellent. When you think about it, Emily, you know, you'll lose around 5% at cutting. You leave it in the field. There's respiration in the field. That's another 5%. So we've already lost 10. We might lose another 10 in the camp. That's 20. We might lose another 5% when we're feeding out, because we don't actually, you know, feed everything. There's a residual, and all of a sudden you've got 25% loss, and that's pretty good.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this is the last slide from me, just to look at some potentials then of what we might be shooting for in terms of a return on investment of going to multi-cutting. And you can work these numbers out yourself for your own system, and you can use them as targets for your own improvement. In fact, if you so wish, and you can calculate these at the end of the season in your review to see how well you've got on. But for example, going from 3 to 4 cuts, the extra milk, if we turned all that energy into milk at 29p a litre, you can see the improvement in payback per hectare, 1,670, and going from 3 to 5 cuts, that's even more, because of what we discussed before on energy production. So if you return the return on investment and turning all that extra energy into milk, if that's what you do, is somewhere between sort of 7.5 to 9 to 1. So that's saying that for every pound you invest in multi-cutting, you're getting 7.5 to 9 quid back. If you turn that extra energy into concentrate at £250 a tonne for your concentrate, then your return on investment is somewhere around 3.5. These numbers, as I say, are indicative. You're quite willing to disagree with them because they will be very specific to your own circumstance. But what I would encourage us to do then, if we're going to go multi-cutting, is to get these numbers down before we start. Do the planning, review the assets, make sure everything is in place, get on with the execution, and then learn from the experience, and we can then make sure that we can get some of these returns on investment over a period of several silage making seasons. That's me, Emily. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, George. Yeah, really highlighting the plan, do, check, review. We've had a few questions, but we'll just wait until our next couple of speakers. So thank you very much, and I'll move on to the first of our farmer speakers, Roger Hildreth. So hope you've unmuted, Roger.
I think I'm unmuted, aren't I?
Lovely.
Yes. Great stuff. Right, can I introduce myself, please? Roger Hildreth, I farm right in the middle of Yorkshire. We're certainly the closest dairy farm to the centre of Yorkshire. Some people say it's God's own county, but I'm not going to argue about that tonight. Multi-cut system, yeah, what drove us into doing multi-cut? Well, really, it was I think the fact that every cows respond really favourably if every mouthful is of the highest quality. Now, you know, we go and graze grass just a few inches high. We get fantastic yields from grazed grass. But could we emulate that in silage? And compared to the traditional sort of 2 to 3 cut system, you know, we think, yes, we can get close to it. We're never going to get anywhere near exactly what you get out of grazing, but you could get very close to it and certainly increase the energy density of the feed, of the silage. We just aim for high quality grass all the time here. The photograph there you'll see on the right, that was actually taken in Holland. It was an A5 notebook in some grass. Now, I just thought, yes, that grass is ready for cutting, and the farmer was aiming on mowing it the next day. And I do believe that was at about this time of year. It was round about the 20th of April. So yeah, they were doing it across there. We popped across with a group with my milk buyer, had a quick look to see what these guys were doing. Brought a few ideas across here. This would be about 5 years ago, and started to put it into practice. Yeah, it was really making higher quality silage before the grass quality fails. Now, traditionally, we used to wait until we could see the seed head before we would cut. And then when it got around to second cut, you'd perhaps see the seed head again. But then you might get some bad weather in between, and cutting might be delayed a week or 10 days. And I can remember once we cut some grass that was 9 weeks in between cuts, between first and second cut. And that's the worst silage I've ever fed. The cows never milked off it, no matter what concentrate we fed. We just couldn't get it back. So what we decided to do was go into this multi-cut job. Cut a bit more frequently, as George pointed out earlier. It isn't something that you do all at one go. You take on a bit of it this year, a bit more next year, develop it over a number of years, and eventually it all fits into place. You really do increase the chances of catching a good weather spell before the grass matures, because if you imagine that if you're aiming at doing a 4 to 5 week cut, gap in between cuts, and the weather turns bad for a week, well, you're still going to get a 6 week gap, which you'll still nail good quality. But if you're going to aim at 8 weeks and it gets to 9, as I said earlier, all you're going to do is make a disaster. Something that's probably fit for not a lot, might be fit for a few dry cows or something like that, but the cows certainly won't milk off it. Yeah, it's just a case of minimizing purchase feeds, really. There's the old adage of it costs you a pound spent on grazed grass is equal to £2 on forage, but it's £4 in purchased concentrates to produce the same amount of milk. So really, that's a bit of a driver as well. If you can make money at it, great. George came out with the figures earlier. Fantastic. Yeah. Next slide, please, Emily. Can I have the next slide, please?
Sorry, there must be a little bit of a delay.
Well, anyway, it's about silage clamp management. It's all about attention to detail right through the system. There we are. That's one of the silage clamps at home there. There are 3 cuts in there and a layer of whole crop. It was whole crop barley last year. It didn't do all that well. Less said about that, the better. But our aim there is to get so you can't see a line between the cuts. Now, some years ago, I popped off to Holland, as I said earlier. There was a guy across there. He had 6 cuts in one clamp, and we couldn't see the line in between. We had access to 6 different silage samples taken at equal distance from top to bottom, and actually, all those 6 samples were just like first cut. It was tremendous stuff. So yeah, it's just a case of getting the basics right, making sure the clamp's clean before you start. It's amazing how many people just sort of don't bother cleaning it. You're getting some bad bacteria in to start with. No matter what you do, if you introduce some bad bacteria to start with in a dirty clamp, then you're never going to win. It's got to be power washed out. It's got to be filled quickly, evenly, sheeted properly. We use quite thick shoulder sheets there, and we don't have any waste on top or at the shoulders. We've established a good farmer contractor relationship. I pay him. That's a good way to get him back next time. I've already phoned him now, contacted him to make him aware of my intentions for this year. He likes us going early because we stretch his system a bit earlier, just expand his season a bit. And by the time we get around to second cut, he won't have finished all his first cuts. That can be a problem sometimes. Just look at the silage clamp as an energy store, really, a store of ME. Cows, well, Holstein cows certainly that we have, certainly respond to energy and it just seems to work. Could we have the next slide, please, Emily?
Yeah, right. Just a quick question. Do you use any cling seal on your clamp or just a single sheet of plastic?
No, we don't. We've never really used a single sheet. We always used to use 2 sheets on top. At one time, we used to use last year's top sheet, and then put a good sheet underneath it. One of your standard black sheets, without naming any particular makes, probably one of the very popular ones. But actually, when you look through that, even a brand new sheet, and look through it, you can still see little pinpricks in it, even when it's a brand new sheet. So that encouraged us to use cling film. The problem we've found with cling film is that you put it on with the best of intentions and get to the edges. Well, by the time you get another sheet on top of it, it isn't quite where you put it. And you're never quite sure exactly what's covered and what isn't. Especially on a slightly breezy day, it can be a total nightmare. So we've actually gone on to one of the multi-layer sheets. They're quite expensive. We had the sheet off that clamp 4 times last year, and we still didn't get any little pinpricks and little holes in the top. So it is just a single sheet with one of the green net sheets on top. We hold that down with lorry tire sidewalls. Generally put 2 layers around the outside, 2 layers of lorry sidewalls around the outside, and then strips across the middle every 5 meters. The green sheets that we use are quite heavy, but we don't get any waste with it. Very, very little, if any. It's great, really, because it just saves going up there and forking the rubbish off. Because, as I say, every mouthful has to be quality. You can't expect cows to milk well the moment you're feeding anything that's even slightly inferior. So anyway, we've got a picture of the neighbour's clamp here. It was actually taken in Holland as well, and that's supposed to be the silage making capital of the world, really. So we thought, but it was amazing how many clamps like that we came across. Just highlights, just looking after the small details. Goodness knows what was happening there. George touched on clamp waste earlier. I shudder to think how much energy is lost out of that clamp before it's ever fed. You know, it's been clamped with possibly the best intentions, and it might even have been good stuff and cracking stuff when it went into the clamp. But if you're going to start and feed silage like that, well, it's a loser to start with, I would say, unless you could get across that clamp very, very quickly, and you would probably need an awful lot of cows to get across that face every day. It's all about eliminating waste. Just compact the edges. We always roll the edges on our clamp up. We put another tractor on top just to roll the edges and corners. Never bother with the middle. That looks after itself. It's keeping the clamp in control at all times and attention to detail at all times. And we never leave a clamp overnight, unsheeted overnight. It's all sheeted within 20 minutes of finishing silage, finishing filling it. Quick bit of a rolling, then cover it up. Our forage analysis, this is more or less what we're making at the moment. As you can see, decent D value and ME, protein not too bad, dry matter maybe a little bit lower than I would like, but to be honest, I don't see a lot of a problem with that silage. We aim to feed a 36% dry matter final ration, and we can achieve it with that silage without adding too much water. Intake potential is quite good too. It isn't just a case of making the silage, of course. It's a case of having confidence in it and challenging the cows to milk from the better forage that you've made, because there's little point making the better forage if the feed rep's going to come around and sell you exactly the same number of tons of feed and type of feed as you bought last year, unless of course you've gone up in cow numbers drastically. But it's having confidence in it and challenging them to milk from it. That's sort of a biggie of mine, really. Next slide, please. Right now, I don't think that we could achieve these figures if we did a 2 to 3 cut system. We got nowhere near that on 2 or 3 cuts. We're only on twice a day milking, by the way. We're quite small farmers, really. We like to keep about sort of 100 or just above in milk. We're increasing by about 15 cows this year. So yeah, feed cost 6.91 pence a litre. and concentrate use at 0.31, a little bit higher than I want. I think I can get down to 0.9 or not 0.29 or 0.3. Margin over purchase feeds a cow. I think that was about just shy of 2,600. So yeah, definitely couldn't be achieved. The yield increased from about 9,500 litres from before we started doing multi-cut to the current 11.3. And feed from forage has lifted from about 3,500 litres to close on 4.7, aiming at 5,000 litres from forage. Quite like to be there. Okay, thanks very much.
Wonderful, thank you, Roger. Really nice summary of what you're doing. What would you say? So you've got another 400 litres to make up to get to your aim of 5,000. What's going to be your major point, or will it just be lots of different little things?
It's just keeping an eye on the ball, not taking the eye off the ball. Attention to detail. We're actually aiming to get quite a lot from genomically testing. We genomically test and select all females. So we have about 25% more heifers than we would want. So we select on the strength of a genomic test. I think as time goes by, more people will be doing something like that. So we just get the poorer ones off the farm. We don't want to be serving those and milking them really. If we can keep the best, and if feed efficiency is going to be a really accurate genomic trait, then why should we not achieve it really? Yeah,
absolutely. All right.
It's going to be genomics, I think, really, and just getting grass breeding as well. I think grass breeding is going to be something for the future, perhaps.
Yeah, we've got a few questions on that, but we'll just hear from Ben next. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Ben. So if you give us an introduction to Oak Tree Farm and tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, so we're a 350 autumn block calving herd down in South Leicestershire. We're doing 7,600 litres from forage. In litres, we're doing 4,650 litres from forage, and our target aim is to try and get to 5,000 litres in the next 2 years. We're a brand new farm. We've only been going for 18 months. It was a greenfield site. So on constructing the farm, we've been around a couple of different new farms and a couple of the kind of top operators, and I decided that I wanted to go for a self-feed silage system. Been down to Sussex and seen how they've done it there, and it seemed to really work for me. I'm not a big fan of machinery, and with this type of system, I could have a very low-cost system with power and machinery and labour, very labour efficient as well. It takes me about 5 minutes to feed my cows, and it's fantastic. We do a 60% and 40% grass silage. I'm aiming to try and get out of that to 50-50 and try and get to the higher proteins in there as well, because we all know that protein costs are going through the roof at the moment. So we've always been a 3-cut system like most people. We've got the home farm, which is Honeypot Farm, which is an AHDB street dairy farm. My dad's always worked on a 3-cut system. It works, but we always find the first cut's good, really good, second cut's good, okay, and then the third cut is kind of your 10.5 ME stuff, and we use that for young stock, and then we have to fill that gap with concentrate. So I know that George has been doing quite a lot of work with my brother on a multi-cut system, so we were kind of looking towards that. Next slide. So our aim for this year is to do 4 cuts instead of the 3, but I think we're going to have to be pretty flexible at the moment. The weather is not gone the way we wanted it to. We are very dry and it's been very cold, and the grass is looking very stressed. But hopefully with the sun out now and maybe get a drop of rain next week, hopefully that might change. We always kind of bench ourselves on targets. So our targets for doing this is to reduce our concentrates in our dairy cows and our young stock. And we also want to utilise our slurry as much as possible and try and decrease the amount of nitrogen brought in our farm. Our grass mixes, we just have a late heading perennial ryegrass. We kind of use that. It works well on a 3-cut system, and we kind of graze it with young stock as well. We are trying some Italian ryegrasses this year, so we're going to see how we get on with that. I've heard good things about them, but then you do also hear maybe some kind of the cons are that we can't graze them with young stock come September. And also this year, what we want to do is do a pre-cut analysis before every cut to make sure we're cutting at the right time. And do that. One of the, I think the key things for us to make top quality silage is our relationship with our contractor. We know that we're his biggest clients, and when the sun comes and we want to go, we are the first ones to go. We will ring him up. He will know pretty much already the day that we want to go. They will turn up at 12 o'clock with a mower. They will go out mowing, and they have triple mowers so they can get it down as soon as possible. And then the only part of silage that we really help with is the tedding. So we've got a big tedder, and we basically follow that mower straight behind it. We want it going out, we want it built in as soon as possible. My dad said that the most important kit on a farm is the tedder. So we always kind of have a new one every two years, because the last thing we want that to do is to break down. And we normally try and have about a 24-hour wilt on the silage. Next slide. So as you can see, this is Oak Tree Farm. You can see the 3 self-feeding silage clamps. The clamps on the outside are the maize silage. They are 26 metres wide, each of them, and the one in the middle is 32, and that's our main grass silage clamp. So as you can see, we're training the heifers there. So that's one of the most important jobs on the farm to do. We're training those cows to eat under it, but most importantly, eat over the wire. And if you can just quite see, there's a couple of 200-litre blue drums just dotted around. They are fenced off areas just to help with slurry management, just easy for scraping and just get a bit less dirty water runoff. So when it will come to feeding the clamps, that grass side there will be all gone. We'll clean the clamps down as much as we can. We'll put a heavy duty black sheet on the sides, and we'll start filling the clamp from front to back. So where obviously the grass is now, that's the back. They'll come in from there and they'll tip it up, and they'll work very slowly on bringing that back to about 2 meters high. We don't want it any higher than that because the cows can't reach it. And the last thing I want to do is make a bit more work for myself during the winter. Simon, he's the man on the clamp, and I want him on the clamp every year because that's the most important job for me. He's getting that clamp right, he's getting it level, and he's getting it compacted. He turns up, he's got a 300 horsepower tractor, he's got a silage compactor on the back and a foot rake on the front, and he will literally dictate when that silage, how fast that silage is coming in. We want it coming in quick, but we don't want it coming in too quick that we're struggling on the clamp and it's not getting compressed properly. I will spend my time on a telehandler. I like the telehandler because it's heavy, it's got thinner wheels on so we can compact the sides, and I'll probably spend 80% of my time just rolling the sides, rolling the edges in, because I do not want any waste. First year's mistake was we did not have a telehandler, we did it on a tractor, and we could not get the sides compacted enough, and we did get quite a lot of bit of waste. And then come September, we will take our silage analyst, see what we've got. We'll take the first cut, which is at the front of the clamp, and the second cut goes at the back, and then we'll basically get our nutritionist. He'll come up with a cake, and then we'll kind of use that all winter. But with the maize silage, you can see there's some left over, and that's one of the key points, key things on our farm. We want that maize to be fed come October when the cows come in. So before we do the maize harvest, all that maize gets pushed to the forward of the clamp. So we're not feeding fresh maize. That maize is last year's maize, and it works really well. And we do add some rape meal in with the maize to just hide the protein in it, because obviously the cows have kind of got an all-you-can-eat buffet, and some of them will like the maize more than the grass, and it just kind of balances it out. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ben. That's and it's worth mentioning as well, we have also been doing some videos on self-feed silage at your farm as well, so they will be coming out. So they'll have a bit more of a kind of description of how they're set up as well. So now I've got lots of questions to get through. I'll just stop sharing for now, and then I'll be able to see you all as well. So if you can come back onto webcam. So thank you very much. Really good short presentations. So we'll be looking on the questions are coming in via my phone. So Ben, you mentioned about the different grass mixes you were using. So I just wanted to kind of put a question to Roger and George. What's the optimum grass seed mix for a multi-cut, and can the same effect be achieved using late heading ryegrass? Where would you suggest red clover and herbs sit in the mix? So if we hear from George first.
I like Ben's approach of late maturing perennial ryegrass. You can put some intermediates in there, but don't go for the earlies, because they'll run out of steam. Red clover I would avoid, because there's so much trafficking going on. Unless you've got controlled trafficking in your silage fields, you're going to get rid of the red clover. What it doesn't like is to be wheeled over. Herbal mixes, yes, you can go multi-cutting with herbal mixes, but you'd need to be careful that you don't cut those out of the mix eventually as well. So I would advocate Ben's approach of late maturing and a few intermediates, and I'd leave it at that. White clover maybe, not red.
Thanks, George. Roger, have you had the same experience?
Well, we just do perennial ryegrasses. We don't go for Italians at all. I think one of the benchmarking groups that was in, a few people used to do Italians, and they found that the quality dropped drastically after first cut. Second, third, fourth cuts were quite low. We just like our perennial ryegrasses. We just put in a long-term lay, and 4 or 5 year lay, 5 year lay really. Yeah, we don't use clover. We just find we've got quite a lot of chickweed on the farm, and we can take that out pretty well with chemicals. If we have clover in it, just complicates it. I think we've lost a few chemicals that we used to be able to use in grass lays as well. So herbal wise, it's something I've not got into. I've seen it, thought about it, not quite got there yet. Maybe a bit too cautious. Perhaps in the next year or two, we'll have to see what happens. I've tried red clover. That was all right. It takes a while to establish though, but it was okay. Yeah, somewhere we might visit it again in future, but generally just ryegrass.
All right, thank you. And then Ben, I know you said you analyse your grass before cutting. So we've got a question, wonder if Roger, you do the same, and George, is it best to send to the lab, or are there any on-farm tests that people can carry out?
Go on, Roger, you go.
No, we don't actually analyse before cutting. We just take it. I listen to what other people in our little WhatsApp group, the grass analysis they're getting back, and we don't actually do it. Probably ought to. Bit naughty, really.
Have you been tempted, or you give it a try?
Could give it a try. Yeah, I think we'll probably give it a try. Have a go at that. Yeah, try anything.
I'd always send it to the lab, Emily. There are some emerging on-farm tests that you can do, dipstick tests for nitrate, for example, but at the moment they're too variable to give us the nuance of answer that we need to make decisions. So yeah, send it to the lab.
All right, thank you. Another question for George. Will all 5 cut systems produce 16 tonnes of dry matter a hectare?
No, that's pretty good. Those numbers were from a group of farmers who really were very committed, and they're very grassy type farmers. They're like Roger and Ben. Okay, so if you're getting to 14, 15, that would be excellent. 16 is pushing it. Depends where you are though. If you're in Pembrokeshire and you can tell me you can do 18, I'll believe you. Or in Cheshire where I'm sitting now.
All right, thank you. Question for Ben and Roger. What was most difficult in your first year you switched to multi-cut? So I guess Ben, this might be this year for you. So Roger, what about you?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that was particularly difficult, but there's so much to almost do a bit different that, you know, it does take a while to get your head around what you're aiming at. I think probably having confidence that the dry matter was going to be right, that we're going to grow enough feed anyway. You know, when we were taking smaller cuts, sort of having confidence that you're going to have enough for the winter, because it seems a bit of a shame to cut something that's so short when you've been used to having something that's about sort of almost knee high, and then you've got to sort of think, well, you know, it's only sort of, you know, 4 or 6 inches below the knee. So am I going to have enough silage for the winter if I keep taking cuts like this? And that takes a bit of getting your head around. Just confidence in quantity.
And what about, were you using the same, or are you using the same contractor that you were previously?
No, we changed contractors at about the time, but that was for another reason. It was he thought, I think the old contractor thought that he had the monopoly around here because we're in the middle of the Vale of York and there are very few dairy farmers. The local contractor thought he had the monopoly and he could charge what he wanted. The new contractor makes a cracking good job. Yeah, and an awful lot cheaper as well. And I think a lot of the guys I know have gone into multi-cut have had a word with the contractor and they've said, look, you know, we're doing smaller cuts, so really we don't want to be paying full whack for that we've done in the past when we used to do sort of 2 or 3 big cuts. We need to have it by the hour or at a reduced rate when you're picking up smaller amounts. Although we understand that it's going to cost more long term, really we don't want to be paying sort of top whack for a small cut. And a lot have been quite successful with that as well.
Yeah, Ben, is that the same for you? How have you kind of managing that relationship?
Yeah, so we have looked at, our contract is very good and he's very fair. So every year, depending on the yield, we will agree with a price. And I think that's very important. And we never ever argue about it. But for me, I said the only worry I've got of a multi-cut system is the dry matter of the silage. So with the self-feed, it doesn't really want to be any higher than 28% dry matter. We're definitely not any higher than 30. I'm a bit worried about with these shorter cuts, they might be a lot dry out a lot quicker, and I'm just not quite in control of them.
Any experience from George or on that?
Yeah. Well, I think Ben's got a good point there, because we've got lighter cuts and we can wilt them very quickly. And if the weather is there, they will go to very high dry matters, and that can give us some challenges with the aerobic stability in the clamp, for example, once we open it up. One of the ways around clamp stability and perhaps Ben to think about is to increase your chop length, just to maintain a bit more water by the time it gets into the clamp and create a bit more clamp stability. So maybe you might think about going from your 3 centimeter chop length up to something more like 4 or 5.
All right, useful. Yeah, there was a question on that. Yeah, so it was 3 centimeters for the chop length. So for Ben, should silage be done with forage wagon or chopper for self-feed?
I think the chopper is very important with it. I think with a silage wagon, your chop length is just too wide, I think. Well, I've only been doing this for 2 years, and the first year we did it, I think we did chop it a little bit too long, and the cows didn't take to it as well. This year we got it about spot on, and this winter's been an absolute breeze. And coming from experience from some of the other self-feed guys down in Sussex, they kind of said, that 3 to 4 centimetres works well for them. So I always thought that self-feed, the longer chop would be easy because the cows will be able to kind of manipulate it out of the clamp. But actually it works better with the other way.
All right, thank you. Question for George: with another slow spring, how can we make sure we keep on track or get back on track with multi-cut if we miss our target date for first cut?
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? It's very anxious times for most of us. I mean, I would try and go as close to when you were going to go. So so Ben normally goes 15th of March. But I'm hoping that Ben and George are going to try and start sort of beginning of May. I'll advocate that they go as close to that as they can. In terms of grass growth, it tends to even out sometime in the system, in the season. So I know that sounds like an old wives' tale, but if you look at the data, that tends to be what it does. So if we're going, try and go start when you were going to start, even if it looks crappy and you're really disappointed, and pray for rain and then get back on track. Because if you delay, then you're not going to get your multi-cut in.
All right, good advice, thank you. People have got to be brave. For Roger, someone said, when we have good silage, cows eat more of it. Did you obtain any more silage from the multi-cut system?
Well, we don't run trailers over the weighbridge on the way into the farm, but I think that you get more total yield at the end, and certainly a lot more energy in the clamp. Yeah, I think you do get more when it gets to, when it gets to around to the end of the year. And certainly it's better quality, so you need to feed less concentrates.
Yeah. Right, like you say, better quality. So I had a question: what sort of improvement in butter fat and protein should I allow for in moving from 3 to 5 cuts of silage?
Who do you want to go?
I'll be honest, I don't know.
George, you can start.
Roger says he doesn't know. I would anticipate none, and if it happens, then it happens on your farm. I hear people saying that, oh yeah, the butterfats and proteins are going up, which is a bit counterintuitive because you'd think that butterfat would go down because you've got a higher quality of forage base, right? But then the extra energy should potentially push milk proteins. But I hear people say, yeah, I get that, and I hear a lot of people say, no, there's been no impact whatsoever. So anticipate nothing and measure it.
All right, thank you. And you felt the same, Roger? You haven't experienced anything different?
Nothing I could put down to forage quality. I think you can't beat a good rumen working properly for butterfat and protein. Currently our cows are doing around 8%, sometimes above, sometimes below, but around 8% combined fat and protein at the moment. Quite pleased with this. I don't expect them to do that when they in the middle of summer when they're grazing, but yeah, they're okay at the moment.
All right, and someone's asked, what other forage do you feed other than grass silage?
Maize at least 50% maize.
Right, thank
on
you.
A dry matter base.
And then a question for you both. We'll start with Ben. How do you get on with clamping your maize silage? Do you have any subsequent wastage at feed out?
This year we've had a little bit of waste on one of the clamps. And it was the first one that was done. It was our fault. We rushed the first clamp to move on to the second clamp, and we didn't spend enough time rolling the top. One thing I have done this year, I've got some salt granules and I sprinkled them down the edge of the sides of the clamp, and that's worked well, and it's just kept it from spoiling. I don't know why it is, but on most maize clamps we always get a bit of spoilage on the top of the sides, and it has stopped that this year. So that's the one thing I can recommend.
What's the science behind that?
I don't know. It's another Sussex thing. I've been to the guys and they all did it, and they just said I think it just kind of stops the bacteria from going on the maize. I think. I don't know if George has ever seen that done.
No, no, I'm learning, Ben. Thank you.
And same question to you, Roger.
With very little waste really. The feeding process, very little at the clamp. We don't get a lot of shoulder waste or top waste, as I said earlier in the presentation. The cows are eating it well. Anything that they leave is cleaned up and given to dairy heifers. We always aim to feed just that bit much, so there is a bit to clean up the following morning. Feed that to dairy heifers and they leave virtually nothing.
Good, great stuff. Coming to the last couple of questions, what type of additives are you each using? And then George, if you could answer, is there any particular types of additives more suited to a multi-cut system?
A bacterial one for me. It's one we've used for many years. Seems to work well. Yeah, great. That's it.
We're the same as Roger. I know we use the exact same one as Roger. I have looked at brewing my own. There's a couple of guys I know that they brew their own silage additive, and it works very well. And they basically split their costs down to about, well, save about 90% on it. And I haven't quite had the confidence to do it yet. So.
The silage additive or not, that I won't go into the details because I don't have the time. If you download AHDB Dairy's Forage First, the section starts page 69 on silage making. There's I think it's around about page 78 or something. There's a very, very simple decision chart on where to and where not to potentially use an additive. So that's a really good starting point. In terms of multi-cut, if we're like Ben and we're wanting to have silages of sort of less than 30% dry matter, then something that's going to reduce pH rapidly and encourage fermentation and the lactic acid bacteria. So I'm presuming that the guys are using something like that's got a what we call a homo-fermentative bacteria in it that does that. If we're going for silages that are above 30%, we need to think about an additive that will help us with spoilage when we open up the clamp, so we'll keep the condition stable against aerobic deterioration. And so we're looking for something that would have a heterofermentative bacteria in it as well to do that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, good plug of the Forage First resource there. So I'm going to finish up with a final question. I'll start with Ben. Do you think 5,000 litres from forage is possible with only grass, grazed or silage? Is there life after maize?
I think it is possible. I think you've got to go have a good year, a good grass year to do it. I know some guys don't like maize. It's one of those things that's always been in our system. You're kind of guaranteed. Maize is a guaranteed crop. You know what the ME, you know you're going to get good starch from it and you're going to get good energy. But I think, yeah, there is life without maize, and I think that you can reach that 5,000 litre forage without it, but I don't think you'll be doing it on a consistently year basis.
Right, thank you. George?
With a healthy crossbred cow and the right year, as Ben says, you can do it, yeah.
Roger, you can have final word.
Right, yes, I think it's doable. The consultant that I use has someone who's pretty good at that, at grass only. They just do grass cake in the milking parlour. They're very, very good at grazing. They don't go for huge yields. But yes, I think it is doable.
Wonderful.
Maybe not
Thank
by me,
you.
I would graze too much.
That's all right, it's not for everyone. So thank you so much to our speakers this evening, and thank you for listening. Just want to say what's next. So as I mentioned at the start, we've got the follow-up next week on the 28th with George. If you do want to book onto that, that will be it's during the daytime, 11 till 1. Do pop me an email, emily.collins@ahdb.org.uk. And then next month we do have another panel discussion on kind of grazing with all year round herds and some higher yielding herds. So do look out for the invite for that, and we'll have some follow-ups with that as well. So lastly, just mentioning our tools and resources available. So as George said, the Forage First Guide, available online or printed. Get in contact with myself, or your local knowledge exchange manager. Really useful information in there. Looking at KPIs, you can calculate your milk from forage using the KPI Express tool. We've also got weekly emails going out, so Forage for Knowledge, which throughout the grazing season, we've got a number of farms across the country measuring grass and analysing grass. So if you want to be able to compare with people that might be local to you, that's a really good one. Also has useful tips throughout the year. Of course, we've got the recommended grass and clover lists. So do have a look at that if you're looking at reseeding, and the soils resources as well. So yeah, just to say thank you very much, and have a good evening. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.